My videos focus on religion and ideology and the harmful effects of magical thinking around the world. I try to promote rational thinking, logic, the scientific method, and humanism. I make one exception. When someone tries to redefine atheism or attach unwarranted attributes to atheism, I feel it necessary to respond. Such is the case for this video. Recently, Steve Shives released a video promoting the idea of turning the atheist movement into an intersectional movement. Intersectionality is a feminist concept coined in 1989 by Kimberly Crenshaw. It's designed to examine how women experience oppression based on the interplay of race, gender, class, ability, sexual orientation, religion, caste, and other facets of identity. The idea would be to address the different forms of oppression experienced by atheists beyond the common concerns of the role religion plays in our society. In short, social justice issues. I'll let Steve explain.
A YouTube video, and I was just sitting here thinking, do you think it's at all possible that we could make intersectional atheism into a thing? I know that for many people, atheism is just a description of a state of unbelief relative to the existence of gods. To many people who identify as atheists, that's all they're talking about. But there is also such a thing as the atheist community. When atheists get together, talk about religion, talk about science, talk about common interests, talk about political issues maybe that are of shared interest to us, we have an atheist community. And when some of us within that atheist community decide to maybe try and do something in terms of social or political action, then we have not just an atheist community, but within that community, an atheist movement. So if there's going to be an atheist movement, and there is, and there has been for some time, I'm not suggesting that there isn't one. There is one, and I feel like in my own paltry way I'm a part of it. But if there is going to be an atheist movement, that movement has to be intersectional if it's going to get anywhere, and if it hopes to have any support and respect from other movements.
Steve is convinced that for the atheist movement to be successful, it needs to become intersectional and must earn the respect of other movements. This, of course, depends on the actual goals of the atheist movement. In my mind, I have always associated atheist activism with the intrusion of religious dogma into legislation, education, and other overreach into the public square. As I see it, the effort to combat religious oppression has been steadily successful in the past decade and continues to move forward with a new generation of critical thinkers.
So we should be intersectional, and intersectionality is very important. Intersectionality means that you don't just worry about the interests and the concerns of the group that is the center of your movement. You also worry about the other identities, the other categories that members of your movement fall into. So intersectionality is very important. That's why it's important when people say that, for instance, they are an intersectional feminist. Their primary concern, if they're describing themselves as an intersectional feminist, then their primary concern, at least in terms of this conversation, is feminism, is women's rights. But as an intersectional feminist, they are also concerned about how transgender people or people of different sexual orientations or people of different nationalities or people of various income levels or various levels of ability are treated within their movement. If you have an intersectional human rights movement, it's important for you not just to ally yourself with other movements, but also to make sure that you are being aware of how people of different categories and different levels of privilege within your group are being treated. So to take this way back all the way around to the idea of intersectional atheism, if we want to have an atheist movement that means something to us, that means something to our society as a whole, that can do positive things for atheists, then we not only need to continue to bang the drum about secularism and maintaining and strengthening the wall that separates church and state.
Tackling the continued assault against the wall between church and state is already a challenging proposition. To suggest that the atheist community has not produced results that are meaningful or positive is demeaning and dismissive to all those who have worked hard, sacrificed, and taken risks fighting for freedom from religion. Steve fully understands that atheists worldwide have been doing more than banging the drum of secularism.
One of the most profound things I've ever heard relative to the atheist movement was said by my friend Meridian Frost a couple years ago in a hangout that we were both guests on. And he didn't say anything revolutionary, but the way he phrased it, he stated it in such a succinct way that it opened my eyes and it made everything so clear to me as to how the atheist movement has to relate and has to exist in terms of its character if it wants to truly succeed and have its goals accomplished and recognized in our larger social and political world. And that is, he said, the atheist movement is a human rights movement. And as such, it has to ally itself with other human rights movements. It can't be an enemy of human rights movements, of other human rights movements, and it can't afford to be indifferent to other human rights movements. It can't afford to just narrowly focus only on its own goals and its own interests and ignore those of others.
Actually, the atheist movement can keep a narrow and defined focus. In fact, keeping the message simple, clean, and clear has been the most forceful part of the effort. There has been no confusion from the opposition on the issues raised by various atheists. Keep your religion out of our lives. It has generally been the mindset of atheist activists not to conflate other social issues, especially those unrelated to religious dogma.
Remind us that if the atheist movement is to truly be an effective and positive human rights movement, then like the Black civil rights movement, like the gay equality movement, like feminism, like all great modern civil rights movements, human rights movements, it must be intersectional. It must be an ally and a friend to other human rights movements, and it must center and focus on the members of its own movement, of its own group, that are in the most need of lifting up and the most deserving of having the attention and the focus that us white guys, old white guys, and soon to be old white guys have always had and have taken for granted. That's very, very important. And
now, Steve is moving into the real agenda here. The old white guy meme may ring a bell or raise a red flag for some of you. You may remember the launch of Atheism Plus a couple of years ago. In her initial statement about the formation of this social justice group, Jennifer McCrae made it clear that old white men were not welcome in the new organization.
because for one thing, atheists are such a diverse group. By definition, the only thing that atheists have in common is that state of unbelief in gods. So we're a very diverse group. So atheism, movement atheism, has the potential to be the most intersectional human rights group that there is. Because atheists come from all walks of life. Atheists are men and women. Atheists are of all gender identities, of all sexual orientations, of all nationalities. Atheists are of all ages, of all income levels. Atheists are a huge cross-section of humanity because we are only united in our atheism by that simple state of unbelief.
Yes, and that's why it works. You can belong to the community based on one simple premise: a lack of belief in gods. You don't have to agree with any other atheist on any other topic. It is an inclusive group and not dependent on any other social or political position.
Because as a future old white guy, I have no problem with old white guys, but I do have a big problem with the face of the atheist movement being dominated and defined by old white guys. I love Richard Dawkins. I think Daniel Dennett is super. And, I was a great fan and admirer of Christopher Hitchens. But I don't like the idea that old white guys are defining the face of the atheist movement.
This may be the most important and destructive part of Steve's proposal. He believes the face of atheism is a problem that needs correcting. Old white guys. Steve found a simple way to be ageist, racist, and sexist in a single phrase. And his failure to mention Sam Harris and Ayaan Hirsi Ali betrays an obvious blind spot in his view of modern atheism, and he ignores a growing list of celebrities speaking openly about their lack of faith in the supernatural. And yes, it's true. Many public personalities expressing atheism are white. Many are male. Some are older. But these people were not appointed to positions of leadership for the atheist movement. There are no leaders outside of small organizations. And as far as I can tell, most atheists prefer it this way. Now, the Four Horsemen wrote bestsellers, lectured, debated, and traveled widely to promote rational, critical thinking. They earned whatever they received from their efforts. This doesn't mean that the atheist community as a whole accepted Christopher Hitchens' support of the war in Iraq, or Richard Dawkins' suggestion that atheists refer to themselves as brights. By definition, atheists do not blindly follow any leader or dogma, and that would include any attachment to other movements. Any atheist, at any time, can join any movement they want to support. Atheists do it all the time. I have subscribers I know to be feminists, MRAs, MLPs, as well as a host of other personal identity or political positions. It simply doesn't matter because it has nothing to do with the position of atheism. We are a very diverse group, and new faces will emerge over time, and for positive reasons, I suspect. But the message will always be more important than the messenger. Steve Shives is free to do as he pleases within the social justice communities. He is also free to do as he likes within the atheist community. Many of us take on issues that are meaningful to us and try to make a difference according to our talents and abilities. Sometimes we win. Sometimes we lose. But we keep fighting in our own individual ways. So far, it seems to be working.